Hello everyone, and welcome to the Heroes and Villains Marvel Crisis Protocol panel. I'm Will Schick, and I'm joined with several of my fellow dev, sculptors, art directors, sculpting managers. We're here, and we're ready to show some really cool stuff. But first, we got to call in the reinforcements. So Josh, could you please summon them?
To me, my X-Men. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Brilliant.
Against this new threat, the X-Men calling backup. Rogue, a high-flying powerhouse with the ability to absorb the powers of anyone she touches. Magic, an incredibly gifted sorcerer who can open portals between space and time. Gambit, able to charge objects with explosive kinetic energy. Colossus, a super strong Russian titan able to transform his body to organic steel.
Bring it on, X-Men! Nothing stops the Juggernaut!
We'll see about that.
Who will be victorious? Only you have the power to decide with Marvel Crisis Protocol. The crisis continues. The Brotherhood of Mutants, led by their master Magneto, seek to ensure mutant domination across the planet.
Somebody's got to stop them. To me, my X-Men.
Here come the X-Men to save the day.
Fools! No one can stop the master of magnetism, not when he has the unstoppable Juggernaut.
No way!
Granted incredible powers by the Crimson Gem of Sidorak, the Juggernaut is an unstoppable force of destruction.
We need reinforcements.
Against this new threat, the X-Men calling backup. Rogue, a high-flying powerhouse with the ability to absorb the powers of anyone she touches. Magic, an incredibly gifted sorcerer who can open portals between space and time. Gambit, able to charge objects with explosive kinetic energy. Colossus, a super strong Russian titan able to transform his body to organic steel.
Bring it on, X-Men! Nothing stops the Juggernaut!
We'll see about that.
Who will be victorious? Only you have the power to decide with Marvel Crisis Protocol. The crisis continues.
So there you go. So I know a lot of you might have seen that during our very special announcement that we surprised everyone with a couple hours ago, but we thought we'd show that video again, if nothing else, just to stay on target with what our initial outline was. So of course, the new X-Men, the second big wave of X-Men, are coming to the Marvel Crisis Protocol game, and we're here to talk all about everything you can expect. We've got some card reveals, we've got some stat card reveals, and we just got a whole lot of cool information about how this wave came together, what it's going to mean for Marvel Crisis Protocol, and I have several of the people who were instrumental in bringing it to us. So I think the first thing that we want to talk about is we're going to talk about the big bad himself. We're going to talk about Juggernaut.
Mm-hmm. That is correct. We're going to start it off with the tactic card art for a card called Do You Know Who I Am?
And you should know who this is just by the look of it. This is Juggernaut, Mr. Kane Marco. This piece was by the great Carlos Cabrera. And a fun fact about it is Dallas, our creative director, had a great idea to add the date of Juggernaut's first issue as the license plate on there. And I thought it was a really nice little touch.
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah,
like,
that
it
was
seems
a
like
nice
a very
touch.
specific thing.
There's always hints of it, like even in the miniatures, there's like hints and stuff like that.
We always put little teasers and little callbacks to the comics as much as we can, and we did it. But very simple art brief, obviously just Juggernaut doing what he does, juggernauting. As some people juggernauting, as some people might call it.
It's a verb now.
It is.
So one of the big things about how this team tactic card came into being, obviously we knew we wanted to do a lot of really cool things with the Juggernaut. He's such an iconic character. He had to be a really big threat on the tabletop. But one of the things that we determined is Juggernaut does have a throw in the game. Mm-hmm. However, it doesn't throw terrain. It only throws characters. And the team tactic card, Do You Know Who I Am, actually kind of makes up for that. So it adds some tactical flexibility to the character. It let us kind of squeak in one of Juggernaut's most popular lines from Marvel Media. And it just offers that extra bit of flexibility for the character itself. This has been a really big driving force for how we've been approaching team tactic cards in terms of what they offer to the character and the different strategic and tactical flexibility that they can bring to characters as you bring them into your rosters.
This card is also very unique because it is the first long throw that throws characters. So that is definitely something very, very unique about this one.
I don't think we'll see that very often in this game, no.
No. Having a character that can throw other characters long
farther than they can normally move for most characters is it's very powerful, very impactful.
But it fits Juggernaut. It really does.
It really does. And I think that's something that I can say in general. We're not going to show the Juggernaut stat card, so spoilers. Unspoilers?
You'll have to wait.
You'll have to wait for the Juggernaut stat card. But we want Juggernaut to feel very powerful and very unique and very different than all the other characters in the game because he's the Juggernaut. He does things very differently. So this is one of the sort of unique things that he gets to do that nobody else gets to do.
And when it came down to Marco, you working on the sculpt and all of that stuff, of course, one of the big things was kind of capturing the unstoppable momentum of the Juggernaut.
Yeah, that was a hard one. I mean, really, sculptor Dave Kidd, who helped us on this one, it was really getting it so it looks like he is an unstoppable force, charging forward and not necessarily looking like he's going to topple over. So expanding on that with the base elements and having his own custom base, like to help indicate the weight of this character, helps emphasize that point on the table.
Well, and the custom base is something that's very kind of specific and unique to the Juggernaut, right? So as you were working on it, you and the team came up with the idea like, we can do a base element that goes on an existing base, but it would lack, well, really the dynamism of the ground just being ripped up under his feet.
Yeah, and Evan King did a wonderful job, showing that with the existing miniature and really pushing it forward and how, if you wanted to expand on that, you can, and also just providing you that template for it.
And
well, the idea, how hard is it to get something that is static as a miniature to look like it's moving? I mean, that's
really where a gesture line, as well as the form of the character, and any way you can indicate it with any kind of effects really helps. And in this case, it's really about the movement of the Juggernaut, really showcasing his size and his ability.
And if I remember correctly, he's actually pushed down into the base, right?
Yeah.
Like he breaks the normal plane.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
so cool.
So cool.
And of course, like detailing that's not only important to capture the character, but it also does transfer into rules. We're not showing the stat card, but I think we can safely say that the Juggernaut has a really unique mechanic that you and I worked very hard, Pagani, on coming up with actual rules for. So one of the big things that I knew we wanted thematically from a design standpoint was that the Juggernaut needed to become more powerful and incentivize players to move. So I wanted to see the Juggernaut move every activation. And the initial idea of how that would work is that every time the Juggernaut, or the first time a Juggernaut makes a move action, he gains extra power and he adds additional dice to his attack. So even though the idea behind the play pattern is, unlike many characters, he doesn't necessarily want to attack twice. When he makes his one attack, it's absolutely horrifying.
So it's kind of like Black Dwarf in that way, right? We have Enforced Oblivion, I think is the name of the rule. It's been a while for Black Dwarf design. Where he has to pay power and then he gets to move and make a really big attack. Instead of paying power, Juggernaut actually gains power to do this kind of thing, which is crazy now that we've done it. And then of course we really wanted to show that momentum. So Juggernaut has some very unique ways of moving beyond just move actions that sort of show him bulldozing through things and going through that kind of stuff. So there are a lot of options here. And there are a lot of things with Juggernaut that specifically work very well with Magneto, who is the leader of the Brotherhood of Mutants. Spoiler alert, Juggernaut is part of the Brotherhood of Mutants? Is that a spoiler?
Probably not a huge spoiler based on the video and stuff.
Very small spoiler. So
Well,
get ready for some new ways to destroy terrain.
The other interesting thing about his design is we started initially with him at a threat 4. And we partially did that because we already had Magneto at threat 6. We had Scarlet Witch at threat 5. And we were like, maybe we need to like kind of mellow out the curve on the Brotherhood. But what we quickly discovered was we kind of went back to the initial discussions. If you remember when we talked about the X-Men design in the first place, when we first introduced them and kind of talked about the Brotherhood's kind of theme, they're all about these larger than life, like super powerful characters. So they're fewer in number. Mystique kind of makes up with that with her leadership.
And Toad as well.
So we decided to go all in, and we actually pushed Juggernaut to a 5 because that's where he was performing at anyway with all the rules we wanted to do. And rather than draw back his power, we actually just bumped him up. And so I think this came together really well because now you can build this super like powerful individuals but small Brotherhood team with Magneto, Scarlet Witch, Juggernaut, maybe a Toad just hanging out. and it makes their affiliation feel very different and unique, and I really like that for everything. And as Pagani mentioned, the Juggernaut plays really well with the Magneto leadership. Of course, works well under the Mystique leadership as well. So he brings a lot of options to the team, and he also has some sculpting options because Dallas Kemp was really excited to put something in his hand.
Yep.
And Marco, you and your team came up with this.
We always wanted to expand on story and stuff. you know us in Dallas. He definitely took advantage. Like, he's ripping things out. Like, we wanted him to be intimidating on the table and give you the option to show that and showcase it, and that you're not going to stop him.
Right. Just give him a light pull as a club.
Yeah.
That's
I
That's
really
really
like how
it.
it ties into the actual terrain on the table, right? Because these are the same ones as from the core set, or very similar. So you can really build that narrative through the terrain, through the miniatures, through everything, right? Like, I love how it all
and tying
ties together.
Yeah,
and,
the
like,
whole line
is
and
cohesive, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's really exciting to me. Yeah.
Yeah, and Josh, play testing the Juggernaut. I mean, I remember some excitement coming from you.
He's the best. He's super fun to play with. I mean, really. And I mean, he was fun at 4, and at 5, it was almost like too much. I mean, it's almost like unstoppable. Like, it's pretty
That's
pretty
in the
crazy.
name.
Yeah, it's
That's-
even in
it's
his
in the
name.
name. Yeah.
You know.
The name right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. No, he's the best. I mean, seriously. Like, I can't wait to get my own, legitimately.
And I know you had some fun throwing him together in some team tactic cards with some characters that are not in the game yet, but
That's true.
you drew on that comic book fandom of yours, and you were like, can we put this character in? We put that character in. So Sebastian Shaw makes an appearance in one of your pieces of art that we're not going to show.
Yeah, I think that is correct, and I don't know what I'm allowed to say, so I'm just going to defer to my head of product.
Yeah.
So that's all I want to say. Yes, I'm a big X-Men fan. We're all big X-Men fans.
Looks
And
at me.
and well, I'm just saying, but we are, because they're cool, right? Even whether the comics or the cartoons or whatever.
What do you think you are not, Pagani? You are.
You are.
You don't have a choice.
And we're digging deep. This is just the beginning of the tip of the iceberg. We've
Oh, there's
got
so much
stuff.
content.
We got stuff. Yeah.
The party is just getting
It's
started.
just getting started.
And speaking of the party, I know that our next reveal is something that people have been very excited about for a very long time and have been asking for.
It's true.
Which is the art for Fastball Special.
Yeah, we since like I think the third comment from the first X-Men trailer was
The
when,
third, you know.
when is Colossus coming, and can he throw Wolverine? And even back then we were like, duh, and of course. And so when it was time to do this piece, I was I was ready. And so this is by Scott Cohn, and like the brief was really simple because he's a comic book fan, so it's like, hey, Fastball Special. Comma.
Period.
And make Wolverine the most Wolverine-looking Wolverine that's ever Wolverine. And that's literally, it's pretty straightforward.
There it is.
And I love this piece. It's super colorful, super bright. It tells, so fun fact, there's a lots of positioning for different types of fastball specials in the comics. Sometimes it's like the football throw. Sometimes it's a little bit like there's times where Colossus kind of tucks him like a little ball and like throws him, you know. There's different ones. And when Rogue or She-Hulk do it as well, like they're usually different positions. But I went with one that I think gave a little as much dignity to Wolverine as it possibly could do, you know what I mean? And gave Juggernaut the sort of like football quarterback pose. But I love this one a lot, and it's super fun. And I don't want to take like the thunder away from you, but I also know you designed Wolverine almost specifically for Fastball Specialing. Like one of his rules is specifically to work with Fastball Special.
Those were all designed
It's
at the
true.
same time.
Yeah. So obviously adamantium skeleton on Wolverine. We talked about that with the initial design. Very cool, but part of it was knowing that we were going to get to Fastball Special. So it's planting a seed for the future where, like, throwing a Wolverine, and as we'll see from the rules, which we're going to preview, not only does this specific card make throwing even more dangerous, the adamantium skeleton tacks on that to make it even worse because now he's counted as size 3. So we definitely knew where we were going with it. We knew what the plans were, and this is one of those things like I always talk about. It's fun to kind of have a plan, plant the seeds, and then watch them come to fruition. Fastball Special is finally here, and now we get to see exactly how that works.
Any art piece with pink, purple, and teal?
That's right.
100% in.
100% in.
100% in. That's my color palette.
Are you gonna hit them now with?
With the rules?
Some rules?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's time.
Yeah.
I think it's time. So here we go. Obviously, this card lets Colossus throw Wolverine. It shows what's on the box, and then it delivers. And this is one of the most dangerous throws in the game because you get to roll fewer dodge dice, and then kind of as Wolverine's flying, right, like the little claws come out.
Yeah.
So it will bleed people that he collides with. As well.
Anyone who's been on the opposite end of a sibling rivalry
Sure.
knows how just horrifying that
Yep.
is. But now imagine that instead of Loki, it's Wolverine.
Sure.
And
Loki's
Wolverine's
like-
going to activate right afterwards and be like, hello,
What up?
can I introduce you to my adamantium claws? Yeah, and you get the bleed condition, which is very thematic, and we wanted to add that little thing of he's of course popping the schnicked into you as he gets thrown. The schnicked. And Colossus in general, another really fun character to do, and I think we looked at Juggernaut and what he brings to the Brotherhood, which is a lot more destruction and this unstoppable force. And Colossus, drawing on the comics and everything that he has, again, not going to show the stat card. We got to save some of it for the future.
You gotta wait.
You gotta wait.
We will show some stat cards,
We do have
though.
stat cards though,
Just not this one.
Just not this one.
Not the last one.
Yeah, Colossus was really fun to work on. I think we have the sculpt to put up as
We
well.
sure do. Oh, I think we have got the art up next.
Oh, the art. Yeah, let's show the art
And then we
as
talk
we
a little
talk
bit
about
more.
this. But the big thing with Colossus was kind of picking into this durable tank that also can bodyguard. He kind of fills that role that the X-Men are missing right now, somebody who in affiliation can stand in and take hits. And he's more on that Captain America side. He's a higher threat value. He's not much of a Okoye. So he's got that tank-like nature, and he can punch with the best of them. Of course, he pairs really great with Wolverine because of the fastball special. So he adds extra offensive abilities to Wolverine, and he kind of fits into that team affiliation. And he's one of my favorite characters to run under the blue leadership. In fact, you and I were playtesting, I remember, and I just kept X-slamming nonstop. I was like, well, I'm going to X-slam again with Colossus. And you're like, how? And I was like, blue leadership. And you're like, why do... This is just ridiculous. So, always gold leadership, very good. But one of the things I'm really excited about this wave is I think it really fleshes out what Cyclops can bring to the table with his leadership, which I know has been seen as the lesser of the two leaderships.
There's always going to be a lesser, though, right?
There always
if
is.
you have two
Yeah.
things,
There's
one of them will
always
always
one
be
that's
second.
better. But I think it's the options that this wave brings really to everything. And as we look forward to some of the characters, i.e. Rogue, we're going to start seeing
And Gambit
where the
as
X-Men's
well,
battery
for sure.
is for that blue leadership.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this artwork, the metallics on this artwork from the start when you started working on them were just stunning.
Yeah, that was one of my main briefs to the artist Gary Daniels. Was give me the prettiest chrome that ever chromed, because he's got a pop. He's Colossus, and we also because we went with a more calm, stoic pose for the healthy side. So I wanted to still draw still make the art pop. So we focus more on the chrome. To make that happen, and then obviously in his injured, it's more of kind of I don't want to say it was like professional wrestling inspired, but it was professional wrestling inspired.
He's dropped the elbow, excuse me, he's fighting dirty. So
that is true.
He's fighting dirty.
That is very true. That is 100% true. But everyone loves Colossus. I'm just gonna say we love Colossus. If you like comics, you like X-Men, Colossus rules, right? He's the best. So we're gonna do honor to him with the art because the rules were amazing. The mini that you'll see shortly is amazing, and so we wanted to make sure that the art paired well with that. And I'm really proud of this piece. And he shows up in other pieces. That I won't say because I'm not bullshit.
That's how it is.
But
That's
he does get featured a lot from here on out. So you will be seeing, if you're collecting team tactic cards for a character, you're going to have a lot of opportunities to collect Colossus
I think
stuff.
that his first appearance was in Warpath, which
that is true.
obviously predated the
him.
miniature quite a bit and came out with the X-Force wave.
That is true. We do.
Now, his costume choice was one that we hotly debated.
For a
because
lot.
he's had a couple of different unique looks.
Pants or no pants. That's
Pants or
really
no pants.
That's the main thing.
The weird body style V thing. All of that. Of course, we kind of went in the middle.
Yeah.
So he's got the full covering on the tunic, the sides are open, and then he doesn't have the pants.
That's true. Yeah, it's a little bit more of a mix of modern and traditional, but it's close to the old school version, especially in the bottom. And yeah, he showed up in Warpath, and just to spell. Not every character that shows up in a Team Tactic card is going to eventually get made. Okay, I don't want to.
Josh is going to say that out loud?
I'm going to say it out loud. Okay,
True.
we're going to keep you guessing.
right.
Just because you see something on a Tactic card does
Yeah.
not mean. But
The guy behind Hood's gang is now telling you that not every character that appears in the tactic card
if I had my
will
way,
wind up in the game.
if I had my way, Rook, the Madam Mask and Grizzly would definitely be in the game. But right now we have no plans for them. I can say that out loud. But
You guys can argue about this.
but we also choose the characters very specifically. So yes, there definitely are some teasers coming, and that's all I'll say on that.
And then
Is that all you'll say?
For now.
The Dallas worked on the pose for the sculpt. We talked a little bit about this. Eagle-eyed observers might have noticed that Cyclops is standing on something strangely mechanical. We did do a lot of this concepting all at once, kind of as Pagani talked about with the rules development and stuff. And we always knew that one of the central aspects of the X-Men experience is Sentinels. And
He
so
said it. He said
I
the
did.
word.
I did. I said
He
the
said
word.
it.
Well, it's not hard to see. Like you got this beautiful like Russian Colossus here holding up a Sentinel arm. So yeah, you did a lot of work on that to make sure that not only was the pose right, but getting the Sentinel parts correct was a big thing.
Yeah, scaling. Tell us about scaling, Marco.
Oh, that's
Tell
always
us
a
about
fun
scale.
time.
because there's-
Shut up, Josh.
There's another thing that we're not going to talk a lot about, but was previewed as well, which is all of the Crash Sentinel terrain set.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that arm appears in that set,
exactly.
along with a torso of a Sentinel. So there was a lot of like engineering thought that went into all these different pieces.
A lot of different ideas, as well as the main point is to show off the strength, right? The Sentinels are the intimidating figure.
Larger than life.
Yeah,
literally.
larger than life, and also just very powerful, right? Like they're known to kill, and the most superpowered characters that we'll come to love.
Yeah.
And so this would be a good way to showcase his strength. It's like Colossus can take him. You know, he's ripping them limb from limb, and that process on its own was, difficult because, like you said, and you were making fun of me right now,
It's
scaling.
hard though.
It's
It
very
really-
difficult,
it's hard.
especially when every comic book that depicts both the Sentinels and Colossus vary
It varies.
widely. Very like Colossus is, regular humans, above average
Yeah.
human, then like he's Hulk size.
I hear, I hear Dallas talk a lot about how we kind of have to figure out our version of a thing, right? Like we look at the comic, we look at the different media, and we say, okay, what is Crisis Protocol standard Sentinel or whatever, right? That we make.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we want people to see our miniatures and still feel the essence that even though it's not to their imagined scale, like
Right.
it's still the essence of that character, that being,
Absolutely.
that
Well,
thing.
And this pose specifically had some like really difficult things that you had to figure out because, having that arm is over his face, and we talk a lot about miniature composition and how you see it on the table. You're always looking at a miniature from like a 45-degree angle down, and the face is so important. This section we talk about it in our painting streams a lot, Dallas and I. It's like spend all your time here. Nobody looks down here,
Yeah.
because you're trained to go to the face, and yet you now have a pose that says, oh, you might not be able to see his face. So I know you guys did a lot of clever positioning of that arm to make the pose feel right.
Clever
but also
rotation.
Open up the face, right?
Clever rotation, making sure that the fingers were over the head so you can still see his head through the fingers. Also giving an opportunity, like there's always these like art reactor blasts on the palms
Right.
that are always depicted.
Right.
To give people the option, maybe you want to do some LED trickery in there.
Well, I think the miniature,
yes.
the official paint shop has a little bit of that too.
A tiny bit.
Yeah.
Tiny bit,
bit.
Yeah.
As a tease.
When it comes to like the studio stuff, we like to make sure that the miniature's front and center. And if you do too much OSL effects,
Right.
you can start to like. OSL is such a powerful like thing in painting
Right.
that it can really overtake like what you're supposed to see.
Right.
And there's harsh shadowing and highlights and stuff, and so you'll see a little bit of it, on certain miniatures, but we always like to dial it back. Now that said, I can't wait to see this guy in a competition piece where somebody just goes crazy with it.
Yeah, that's
Because as Marco points out, right, that blaster is like right there, and you've got the reflection of the metallic on Colossus, and like I think this is going to be a painter's dream. I can't wait to see what people do with it.
I mean, I think this whole wave, like together in a
Oh, yeah.
composition, is just going to be
And
absolutely stunning.
And like I mentioned before, right, that was another really big thing is that we designed many of these characters all at the same time, and the whole thing was, okay, if I put, we always try as much as possible to say if I put all of these characters in an affiliation together, what cohesive, like I'm going to say tableau.
I know.
That's my word.
If you weren't saying it, I was going to say it.
What's the
I was gonna say
tableau
it.
that you're going to see, right? And so using the Sentinel pieces to kind of tie everything together for the Uncanny X-Men and stuff, Like that was really fun. It was fun to do, and I love the fact that he's crushing like the Sentinel head.
Yeah.
With his foot, he's like, I got your arm.
Again, to showcase weight, to showcase the miniature's strength, and that's really all the emphasis that we really want to put in to showcase on the table.
Well, that was incredible. I mean, honestly, getting the Sentinel parts to be the correct size on him. And on the terrain, the terrain. I mean, that was a lot of work, and you guys did an amazing job. I just wish there was something else we can use those parts for. All right, moving on to the next.
Wow. I don't know. I mean, maybe someday.
You're not Will Shakes. So.
I'm not Will Shakes,
Not
so
Will
I
Shakes.
don't know.
Few people are, honestly, I've heard.
That's true.
Very few people are.
And it's a burden. It is a true burden.
So I think next we're going to be talking about the character that
Magic.
comes with Colossus, which is Magic, his sister,
Yeah.
Ilyana Rasputin.
Sister, daughter?
Sister, yeah.
As an X-Men fan, I should.
Yes, everyone's an X-Man fan.
Everyone's an
It's
X-Man
fine.
fan.
Everyone's learning stuff. It's fine.
I
So-
love this art, John.
Yeah,
This is my favorite out of this whole entire wave, art-wise.
This
So
art
good
was
job.
really fun. Talking about, and we'll get to that in a second. Just talking about like the character in general. This was one that you were surprised that we had put on the list.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Why are you surprised, Josh? Why are you surprised? We're all X-Men fans."
We are, and it's because she's amazing, and she's an incredible character. She's tied in with some of the second generation of X-Men, like the New Mutants kind of thing. And so see, don't test me, because she may not have been the first choice, but she was easily the second, like out of like a very short list, and she ended up being the best choice, I think, in my opinion, because they have that relationship between brother and sister, and because not only, and I'll get to the art in a second, but not only is she cool as an X-Men character, she has these magic abilities, these mystical things that she adds to a roster that so far I don't think has anything mysticy like.
Well, I mean, you got Jean Grey.
Jean Grey, of
you have
course,
you have
yeah.
the telepaths, but not necessarily magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things, and we'll do a little spoiler here, like
Oh, here we go.
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
dangerous.
just
I don't
a
like
little
this. I'm sweating.
it's not a huge spoiler.
Nice.
Then
nice.
But one of the reasons why I really wanted to tag in Magic into this second wave, not only is she a great character, and I think that her pairing with Colossus and kind of what she brings to the X-Men are really cool.
Made sense.
We were also working on the Convocation at the time, and
Oh, yeah.
I thought it would be really fun to have some crossover with that, and she
Yeah.
just fit in really well. So when those documents go up, you're going to see that Magic is the final member of the Convocation that we haven't spoiled yet. Bum, bum, bum. So, yeah, but a lot of fun actually for the development, as we're going to see on the card here. We stole
not
a
yet.
Josh Cologne idea.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Oh, it's so dangerous. Oh, I
Yeah.
can't wait for you to remember that.
Yeah, we'll
okay.
talk about it. We'll talk
that.
about it. But talk about the art first.
Yeah, so she's awesome. This is by Tyler Walpole, who I love very much. Shout out Tyler. And so Magic, a lot of the X-Men have a lot of like combination powers. Like some of them have powers from their X gene, but also from equipment or from training or whatever. And she has all three. She has the teleportation as an innate superpower, like from her X gene. But she's also a wizard. And then the blade.
She doesn't wear the hat. She's a sorceress.
She's
sir.
a sorceress.
She's the sorcerer supreme of Limbo.
That's right, she's a sorceress of
I don't
Limbo.
see a hat on this. It can't
That
be a
is
wizard.
true. And it's true.
This has to be an inside joke or something.
And then her blade, which is part of her soul and of her magic, is part of it as well. So we have to figure out what is she going to be doing in the card. So having her be partially teleporting was a no-brainer. And then we went. I want to show the fact that she's really fierce and a great, pretty solid hand-to-hand fighter in her injured side. So yeah, I love this art a lot, and it's I've seen artists that did Cassandra Nova. And who has a few more pieces coming in the future.
This was another one where we had a lot of discussions over I say we have a lot of, but really we had one discussion over the size of the Soul Sword.
That's right.
Because it is depicted very differently in a lot of
All
different
the time.
creative teams.
There was one that was like Buster Sword size, like just
And I mean,
giant.
that's
That's kind of what we got.
That's basically what we like. I remember sitting there and we were talking about concepts and what the costume was going to be. And there are some things about her different looks. She's very spiky.
She is.
You know,
very
she has a
spiky.
lot of like.
Yeah.
She has a lot of different outfits that are like super. They got fins and spikes and all this stuff. And as Marco's going to talk about when we get to the sculpt, sometimes that stuff can be really difficult. So you got to simplify and planes. If you saw the last discussion when we did Miss Marvel and Hulkbuster, but there was zero debate Because Dallas and I were like, she's got the big sword, and you were like, but, and I was like, no, she's got the big sword.
She's got the big sword, and she's very important to Dallas too. Like she's like up there with Ghost Rider for him. So he took a lot of pride and he was very instrumental in bringing her in everything from the rules to the miniature to the art.
We'll talk about the pose that he and I like worked out, but no.
There was a lot of back and forth.
We dreamed big, and then we made Marco do it. In this team, so. Let's jump to the next thing, which I think is the stat card.
No, it's the pose.
It's the pose. Perfect. So
It's
here we go. Like the biggest thing that we wanted, we really like to look at characters in terms of what they're doing. Josh mentioned that Magic is extraordinarily fierce. She, because of her time in Limbo and her as the Sorcerer Supreme in Limbo, she actually is possessed by Dark Child, and that can cause problems for her in different story runs and stuff. So we wanted to have this, like we're talking about, okay, we have this giant sword. The sword itself actually posed a lot of problems because it is bigger than she is. So when you start talking about poses, like Dallas started and he's like, well, I guess we could have her like holding the sword like this, but now it's gonna break the base.
Yep.
We can't really have her standing with it because it's taller than she is if we want to do it at the right size. These are all things that in three-dimensional space you have to worry about when you're just drawing a cool piece of art. You don't necessarily have to worry about because you can cheat things. And eventually I was like, well, what if she was just leaping through the air out of a portal and like doing a big old swing? Because now the sword, you don't have to worry about like where it's going and all this stuff. And he's like, and he just took that idea and he ran with it. And what he came up with was just genius in my mind. Like it captures the power, and I love everything about the motion and everything here. And then it went to Marco, and we were like, okay, well, here's this sketch of this person doing this big old like arc leap with this huge sword, and she's got all these spikes, and Marco, you have to make this thing.
Yeah, very deceptively difficult miniature. Because you always get one of those art pieces and you're like, yeah, it's no problem. I know exactly how this is going to go down. But then when you actually get down to it, you're like, this is a lot more complicated than I thought. Because for one, she's not a big character like Colossus, where things are big and chunky, so you don't have to worry at that scale like how it's going to translate into production into plastic. But with her, she has small pits. She has little spikes coming out of her gauntlet. She has these long tendrils of hair. She's got these these horns coming out, and she's got all these little things, as well as the pose. Like it is very deceptive how having two hands behind your back with hair over it, with horns, and then on top of that the tendrils. It's a lot harder to make sure that the miniature isn't in a bunch of tiny microscopic pieces.
Right.
So it was very integral to simplify areas where they can be, and then also position them just right where we can keep certain pieces whole, like that whole sword and where it connects to the portal is all one piece with the whole left arm. Like
That's cool.
Yeah.
it's all, so then it just plugs in nicely into the portal vertically and then plugs in horizontally into the body.
And one of the things, like as people get their hands on the frames, which will be a little while, but I think the evolution of the cuts and what Evan and you were able to do along with the rest of the engineers now in terms of just like the way in which, like you said, the portal, the sword, the left arm, all one piece. The way the torsos are now cut to hide seams. We're going to talk about Rogue. I just put her together again for tonight's stream, where we're going to be painting these characters. Like the way the jacket and the torso slots in, so you're now like hiding seam lines and stuff without just using costume scenes has been really impressive. I love the way that you were able to come up with, like, I know I gave you a lot of crap about being able to see the sword through the portal. Because originally the sword was like buried in the portal. I'm like, no, you got to see the point of it.
And that, I have resentment for. No, I'm kidding. No, I mean the point was, like, again, how do you have her being lifted up in the air with the Buster Sword in that pose? Because it's always a lot of times we're like, well, why didn't they go with this pose? But then the question, as we always make fun of Josh, is like, well, then how are they lifted in the air?
Yeah,
how do they hold up? How do they connect to the base?
And it's clever because you did the foot and the sword, which is brilliant, like legitimately brilliant.
Actually, the foot's not even
The foot's free.
Get out of here, really?
The foot's free.
Wow, look at that.
The other part that I think is really interesting to talk about, because it's something that I think a lot of people who don't deal with this stuff day in and day out and deal with engineering and everything, is the face.
Yeah.
So hilariously enough, way back at the start, we had some very serious conversations about can you do open mouths and make them look good.
Right.
Yeah.
And one of the big things with Magic here is that we wanted her to have like that fierce warrior, like she's doing that iconic like she's coming in to like hit you with the sword. And so that expression, well, it may not look like it, was a huge amount of work and achievement for your team.
Yeah, again, this whole miniature was just deceptively difficult because especially with faces, I mean, unfortunately for a lot of female faces, even in comic books, they tend to just all be off of the same like default
template,
face, like very simplified,
Yeah.
very just soft feature.
Right.
And when you have to
So-
draw something 100 times, right, you got to make sure that it's really like
Exactly.
robotic.
So when you're translating that into 3D, it can be difficult because then you might make them look older than what they really are, which is some things that we learned in the past, where it's like, yes, you can add this detail and these expressions, but you could be making them look old, like the complete opposite of what you're trying to exhibit. And so trying to make it so her expression isn't awkward and it's still readable and easy to paint, that was really the challenge that I think we did a pretty good job of nailing.
No, it came out
You
so
nailed it.
great. So great in Sculpt. So now I think we can talk about the rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Magic
Yeah.
rules.
Magic
Magic stack
rules.
cards? Magic stack
Stack,
card.
yeah.
There we are. Our healthy one here.
So obviously she brings, as Josh mentioned, a lot of the magic and the mystic like attack effects to the game. I was working on designing her alongside Convocation stuff, so we had just come off of Pagani's amazing Dormammu stuff, and so I borrowed one of his ideas there where when she goes into the Dark Child mode and the monster comes out, you see that reflected in the fact that she gets to count fails as successes, and she also gets to count your opponent's fails as successes, which was a Dormammu thing that I thought was really fun from Pagani. And then Limbo Step was an idea. Josh is like, hey, if you ever do a teleporting character, you know what you should do? You should let them pay X power, and then they get a teleport X range. And I think your original pitch was like up to 5. And Pagani were like, no,
Don't do that.
that's outrageous. But then so of course I kept that in the back of my mind, and we had that moment. I was like, oh, here's our Limbo
got
Step.
it.
Let's do it. And I loved it when you sat down for playtest. You're like, this is my rule. You stole my rule. I was like, no, I used your rule. Like, what else did you tell us this for if you didn't want us to use it?
Yeah, it's true. Try to be really careful. It was so exciting to see it, and it fits totally well with this character. And it like, I don't even think it was really changed much from the original, like the Limbo Step itself. I think it just worked fairly
Yeah.
well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this character didn't undergo a lot of changes through playtest.
Yeah,
This was kind of as pitched, and
and
sometimes you
it
get
worked
lucky.
really well.
Which is impressive, yeah.
Like sometimes you get lucky.
It's rare.
I was
but-
worried
sometimes.
then, because
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
if there's not a lot of screaming, then I don't
Yeah.
know if it's going well.
Yeah, if we're not yelling from the dev office in playtest, what are we even doing? Yeah, this character is really aggressive. Right? Well, I mean, you've got Soul Sword. It's a strength 5 attack. That's pretty good. It's got Pierce. That's great. It makes a bunch of power if you want it. You've got Bolts of Oster. Oster?
Oster.
Yeah, yeah. Get in there.
Which gives you that really great ranged attack that you can use to just build power. So she's very versatile in where she wants to play on the table. She can get really aggressive with the melee. She can get not as aggressive and stand on some points with the bolts. And then Darkchild is a deceptively powerful spender because of that failure result, right? And you get this weird thing where like the higher their defense is, kind of the more powerful Darkchild gets.
Right.
At least as a spike potential, right? If you're rolling 3 dice, you can only get 3 fails. If you're rolling 6, it could be a rough day.
Could be rough.
It could be a real rough day. There's a sweet tactic card with this character that we're not going to show.
It's true.
But it
It's
is called
true.
Journey Through Limbo.
Yeah.
But we're not going to show that.
Oh yeah.
And then the last big thing was the Sorcerer Supreme of Limbo. We wanted to showcase her. She is the Sorcerer Supreme of Limbo in the comics, and that is her role. And so we got to come up with a new, we've seen Sorcerer Supreme in Eye of Agamotto on Doctor Strange a couple of times, and through the Convocation wave with Ancient One. So it was fun to come up with, what does the Sorcerer Supreme of Limbo kind of get to do?
Yeah, like how is it different, than
different.
the Earth version
Yeah.
and the other different realms and stuff?
And so that's kind of like what we came up with, and we utilized. I kind of went back to the Captain Marvel's energy absorption ability to show that because she's inhabited by a demonic entity in the Darkchild, and she mostly resides in Limbo and has all this magic potential, that hitting her with those kinds of attacks actually just empowers her a lot, and I felt like that really kind of transcribed her power set into the game in a fun way, and of course, like plays into kind of what she wants to do. She's very mystically oriented, and then she also has that extra defense against energy. So,
and I kind of like this idea of like, as you're possessed by things, that does different things with mystic things, which we kind of have going on with Hood as well.
Yeah.
Right, where he has like the mystic vulnerability, and then magic with Darkchild is the exact opposite of that. Is that sort of mystic durability and mystic absorption stuff.
because she's in control as opposed to the other way around. Yeah.
Yeah, like I really like that sort of through line of that theme playing through here.
And
So
she's just so
I
tough
like
to
it.
kill with Colossus near her. Like I just realized, like, oh
Yeah.
my God, Colossus
yeah.
protecting her. It's crazy.
It's a good one.
All right,
It's
what
a
do
good
we
one.
got next?
Next up, we have some Gambit Tactic card art.
Oh yeah.
This
So-
card is Charming Thief.
Charming Thief.
What you got
Classic.
there, Gambit?
Well, I mean, Gambit is a fan favorite. I remember loving Gambit, especially when I was younger. And as you know,
We're all X-Men fans.
the Raging Cajun, Remy LeBeau, you know, he's a thief. He's a master thief. So we had to have a thief card. I mean, this is one of my favorites by Carlos Cabrera, and it's a simple scene, but it just kind of shows, you know.
I mean, that smile, like totally, like you can just tell he's a scoundrel.
Yeah.
He's a
something.
rapscallion.
He's
Yeah.
up.
You love him
That's
at the
something.
same time as you hate him.
That's right, absolutely. And it's just, it's funny, we actually went through several versions of what each of the colors of the gems were. Because, like, the big one was yellow originally, it looked like a big pineapple. So we're just like, let's
maybe nix the pineapple.
But yeah, no, it's a really fun piece. And from I remember, the rule for it is also
pretty saucy.
super fun.
Pretty good. It's pretty good. I mean, we can flip over to that side, I think.
Yeah, I just have to say though, Josh, I don't know if you'll ever beat the Mystique card.
Oh,
Gambit
yeah.
Tactic card.
It's
art.
true.
Yeah, that's right.
It was very solid.
Deception.
First
It's still
appearance
my
of
favorite.
Gambit.
That's right.
So yeah,
Um,
this card basically just gives him the soul gem effects for
correct. Yes.
a round, effectively.
Which we are not going to be showing the Gambit stack card. Sorry, everyone.
You have to wait.
You
Just have to wait.
You gotta wait. You can't. We're giving you your dessert first. But Gambit is pretty power hungry, and Schick talked a little bit about how he utilizes Cyclops' leadership pretty well. That is definitely true, and this is another one of those ways that you can also power that Cyclops' leadership is through cards like this, and Rogue, of course, also does some things with power, which are pretty cool. But this kind of helps Gambit get the power that he needs to get going and get started and sort of generate his train of power.
Yeah,
Can we say that?
Yeah,
He gets
it works. It works.
His engine gets going.
Yeah. Gambit was a fun
That's a
one
fun
to
one.
design from kind of the get-go because he, you know, we got to put in, I'll give some spoilers, like a 3-threat, because it's easier to talk about. So like he fills
we
that
give some
he fills-
spoilers, right?
He fills that 3-threat kind of ranged option for the X-Men that they currently don't really like. You have Storm, but you're taking her for the leadership, and you know she doesn't quite fill the exact same niche as Gambit does, where he's more mid-range. He does get a beam attack as his spender and things like that. You came up with a great rule for him, which was a little something extra. Literally the
yeah.
name of the rule.
Yep. Yep.
And effectively, what that allows him to do is, after he makes an attack roll, he can change one of his results to a wild by spending a power.
And he's got a lot.
And he's
of
got a
wild
lot of wild
results.
effects. So it was a cool way to kind of showcase that he kinetically charges all of his different like attacks. So when he spends the power, he can kind of guarantee himself to get those wild results, of which he has, I think, one on each of his attacks, if not.
At least one. Yes.
So having that in his pocket is really great, but of course he has the power to use that. This gives him a lot of power, and again ties into that X-Men Blue leadership of he can kind of build a lot of power that you can then spend on your other big attacks, so he can be that team player. And I think the biggest thing that we talked about before, and that we wanted to continue through with these character designs, is the idea that, you know, each of the X-Men is always kind of like viewed as there's so many Omega level mutants on the X-Men. Like, why do they need a team? But when you look at them in a team book, it's always like they only become super strong together. And having that be their through line in the affiliation has been something that's been really fun to explore and like build out in these different ways. That it's like, okay, each of these characters has really powerful effects, but when you learn how to maximize them together and start building them into each other, you start to see the greatest results out of them. And so like things like Fastball special, taking one of Wolverine's semi-weaknesses is that he has to get there. He has a bunch of close range attacks and putting a medium throw on it that deals damage to your target, which then makes it easier for Wolverine to daze and maybe sets him up in a perfect spot to Berserker Barrage afterwards and get even more distance out of it. Those kinds of like synergies between the characters, to me, scream X-Men.
Absolutely.
Like, they remind me of everything that's there. And Gambit was one of those that was really fun to kind of like plug into that mix and just have fun with kind of what he can do and how he does stuff. And I even got kudos from Josh because I did remember that part of Gambit's mutant power gives him enhanced reflexes.
That's right.
A lot of people kind of forget, according to Josh.
That's right. We went back and forth on how that would look like a little bit, but it came out awesome. It really does.
I think we got the sculpt next.
We got art.
Oh, we have art.
For our
Josh, talk about the art.
Look at that.
Oh, look at that. Yeah.
Look at his beautiful magenta bodysuit.
Look, we got pink and purple.
Yes.
So I'm in.
Classic
Magenta.
colors.
The
for
classic
Gambit.
colors. This is also by Carlos Cabrera, who did the Charming Thief art. And obviously, I mean, Gambit is just, with that big cloak, the big coat, like he just always looks cool. You gotta have it billowing. It's gotta have it billowing.
Always billowing.
It's always constantly billowing.
No wind but billowing.
No wind but billowing. You have his bow staff, and then a little detail is, comics fans will know, when Gambit's angry, his eyes glow. So you make sure to add that. That was a very specific note I added to the injured side.
You really actually to everyone.
I put up the glasses.
This is the life of Josh right here.
But yeah, it's fun, and it's fun to make him look cool and look awesome, and do justice to the miniature. And again, then the rules. That's really one, because usually I get the art or start doing the art after the miniature it started being sculpted. The rules are usually being cooked up, and that just motivates me to do a better job, because I'm like, it can't be the art can't be the weakest thing. Yeah, but it cannot be the weakest thing. But yeah, so this was just a blast to work on.
And then we've got the miniature.
The miniature.
Look at that.
I mean, this one, like, we always talk a little bit about how we approach each of these characters in a way that is, okay, if you were going to get like a premium statue, that's, you don't want to diminish the character and the feel of everything that they do because it's 40 mil. Right. And I mean, Dallas and I were like, well, he's got to be throwing the cards. And I think you guys knocked this out of the park.
I mean, that was the scary part. It's like, oh no, there's going to be cards in a miniature.
Yeah, 40 mil cards. 40 mil scale cards, which are like 1 mil, half a mil.
Very small. So we have to definitely keep in mind for our miniatures the minimums in which we work in order for those to not just be these easily snappable things by accident. We really have to make sure that they were reinforced. And so we definitely took a lot of inspiration from the existing comic art that's out there. Like he always has that kind of psionic, like blast energy that connects his cards. Because even comic books fall in, like victim to like, how do you show motion in these powers? Well, then psionic blast wave.
And this is actually one where the initial the motion was flipped. I remember instead of having the swoop going this way, I think it was coming this way. And Dallas and I, when we saw it in our first cam, we were like, this doesn't feel right. And we actually reversed it to kind of match more of, because it doesn't really make sense to throw your cards this way, but this is he's always shown that. Instead of coming down like this, like you would throw a knife or like a card like that.
Yeah.
And so we flipped it, and it just felt so much more Gambit. And that's one of those things where it's like, we're always kind of looking at that and being like, well, you and the engineers are so good at coming up with well, the anatomy says that you would do it this way, and this is what the motion would be in real life. And then Dallas and I look at it and go, yeah, but that's not what the comics do.
Yeah, and it's really a balance of everything, right? Like, does this actually work? Does this make sense? Does this look cool? Is it readable on the table? What does this look like, and how much are you giving people or painters and all the like to really highlight those effects from afar, like a distance.
And this is another one talking about kind of the leveling up of engineering that blows my mind, because talk about how the arms
because those are actually, both arms are connected by the shoulders with the cards and the psionic blast and the pole all together as one piece. So you have that whole piece that sockets into the torso, and it goes in and slots right in.
I mean, again, I just assembled this miniature not not but like 20 minutes ago, and it still blows my mind every time that whole wingspan with the staff, with the cards, is all one piece. You found the right plane and the undercuts and everything. Like the engineering on this guy is just, it's phenomenal. It's fantastic.
And a lot of lessons learned.
And a lot of lessons learned. Right. Culmination of so many things that so far
things.
we've like put together, and your team just continues to impress. So I'm really excited for people to get a chance to see everything there, because you have such a dynamic pose, and yet, you know, it's a very smooth build with some really clever like engineering to it.
And Marco, I just want to say that if we can get the Deadpool tacos, we can get playing cards.
Oh yeah,
Right?
yeah.
I mean, goes without saying.
That was truly
There was no excuse.
There's no excuse if we got the tacos.
so many tacos.
So many tacos.
Never enough.
And then I think
Never
we're
enough.
on to Rogue now, right?
Yes. Well, first a tactic card.
Oh, first a tactic card.
Yes.
This was a Josh.
Pardon me.
This was a Josh tactic card.
Sugar.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, did I do? Yeah.
I might have named it, I think, but this was a Josh special where he's like,
She
Rogue
must-
always
yeah.
Rogue
Yeah,
always
yeah.
like steals the powers from her teammates in a pinch and then does something with them.
That's true.
Well, actually, I want to.
Oh, here we
Oh
go.
yeah, here you go.
It's not always their teammates.
That's
It's true.
So this actually works on allied or enemy versions of these characters.
Look at all those.
Look at it.
Look at all that text, but it's there for a
So,
good reason.
I also call this a Pagani special because nothing makes Pagani happier than doing these really long charts of different options.
Yeah, the menu. The menu.
Starting,
I believe it was right after this card we started doing bullet points.
That's true.
So in the future, when these cards exist, they'll have bullet points.
The last version I saw did not have Deadpool. That's how. This is insane. Like it was already crazy, and you just added Deadpool for like it's incredible. That's all I want to say.
So this card really embodies roguing.
Uh-huh.
So like taking off the glove and giving somebody a touch, where she can sort of steal powers from people. We had an original version of Rogue where she could just full-blown steal powers from people, and that obviously didn't work out because how can you balance that and keep that in check when there are almost limitless possibilities, especially for future-proofing. We have learned our lesson about unmitigated things like that. So these ones here are all throwbacks to old characters, a year ago characters that she can borrow things from.
yeah, it definitely, like the whole card kind of builds off of Deadpool's team tactic card where he gets to steal stuff from other
Yoink.
people.
Yoink, yeah.
Yep. And yeah, like Pagani mentioned, you know, when I sat down to do the design and stuff, we had already talked a long time ago about Rogue and can she steal powers and all this stuff, and we very quickly both agreed that it just, not only is it a balancing issue, it's also simply an issue of like the rules for it are so confusing and difficult because you have to change the whole wording to affect her rather than the target. You don't have that card in front of you. You're relying on your opponent to tell you what the card says. You're going to forget what it says. They might not read it right. It's a whole thing. So Yoink really informed us in this direction like right away. And instead, as you'll see on the stat card, we did come up, I did come up with a design that Pagani and I were able to work through that does reference her ability to absorb other people's powers in a different way without going through the rules nonsense that this card actually provided us the opportunity to do, where she actually gets the benefit of a superpower rather than just their life force or energy essence.
Do you have a favorite stolen effect, Pagani?
I mean, I love the Magneto one.
Yeah, I think you don't.
Right, like I really love the Magneto tactic card that gives everyone cover around him. Magnetic refraction might be the superpower. There's a lot of magnetic things going on with Magneto, obviously. But I like that one a lot because I think that's, to me, I don't know, that one is very, like, grab, so I don't know, that one's really fun to me.
Magnets.
Magnets.
How do they work?
How do they work? But this card and Mental Domination from the Jean and Cassandra Nova box were designed hand in hand. And between that of stealing superpowers from people and then taking control of characters, which that card went through a ton of iteration as well, the Mental Domination one, really sort of let us explore, like, how crazy can we get? And we can get pretty crazy, but we can't get that crazy.
That was a long week. That was a long week.
That was a long week. And if usually when Schick shows up with a design and I'm like, this is crazy, it's not going to work, we usually find a way to make it work. Not with those two.
To be fair, sir, mental domination was you bringing it to me,
No,
and I was
that's
like,
true.
"You told me we can't do this."
Yes.
And I don't think we can do this. And you're like, "I'm gonna try," and we tried for a month.
We couldn't do this. So that's how we got mental domination where it is, which is still a great card, and it does all sorts of cool stuff, right? But it started out with like control of characters.
I mean, yeah, it was
cra-
literally
it was
just
crazy.
take control.
Take
Ghost Riders
control.
popping out of enemy characters and stuff,
It was
and you're
amazing.
like, let's not do
Let's
that.
not do that.
Let's not even talk about. Oh God, yeah, there were so many issues.
Are we showing? Are we doing it?
Is it time?
Is it
I don't know
time?
what's
Is it
next
time?
on your list. You're the one who knows what's coming next.
Oh, that's true. I have a rogue miniature next.
Rogue
so I
miniature.
don't know.
Oh,
I think it
let's
is time.
talk about this.
Miniature.
So,
Look at
the initial concept for this, we wanted, again, we were talking about the Sentinels and thinking about how all these characters pair together. We really wanted to show Rogue's flight and her strength and kind of everything. And so I'm often the one, as Dallas has woefully discovered, that I always am like, can they be ripping something apart? Can they rip open a bulkhead? Like, how do we do this? I'm always trying to push the idea. Like, I love those scenes where you can see that stuff, and to me it's fascinating. Like, can we do it in miniature? And there are so many things that are challenging about it, but we always get really great stuff. And so this kind of came about from a whole like, okay, well, could she be like, originally what I pitched was, can she be like punching through something as she's flying? Like, could it be a brick wall? Like, can we get like the thing? And how do you do that? How do you make it work? And this was kind of the thing that him and Marco came up with as they were talking about, okay, what's possible? And so she's bursting through this giant Sentinel like chest, the little like energy thing, and she's got the little like
Power core.
the power core on
Yeah.
the fist, and she's looking all smug about it. And it's so much fun. Like you really took that concept and just went way over the top with it.
I mean, it's always the same, right? Where it's like that you're a madman. You're a madman, but let's do it. We're gonna do it.
To be fair,
gotta be
this wasn't what I originally asked for. This is what Dallas gave me.
And look, we like challenges. Yeah. But no, and really that's what it comes down to, is to tell that story and to emphasize it, and as well as like if you want to tell it your own way, because that that heart, that arc reactor isn't necessary. It's an option. You can have a bare fist.
Her fist is completely full under that, so if you don't want the core, you can leave it off.
You can leave it off.
All that stuff.
Yeah. And so it's just, again, to emphasize the story, to also showcase the character, because it's really hard, especially with Rogue. Like, how do you showcase her absorbing someone's powers
Yep.
in a miniature, or let alone like physical, art piece? And so with Rogue, she's always depicted as, having that super strength, right? And invulnerability. So like that's a really good way to take advantage of that and show her like busting out, and show the gesture line of her and that curve of her like launching forward, and also kind of like that sort of like that confident, positive, Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel attitude,
Because she's invulnerable, so like going through explosions doesn't hurt her, right? Which is a nice little touch that shows in the miniature.
I think one of the coolest things about how you, again, accentuated the speed and the action is the way in which the flames are coming, like the smoke and the flames are trailing off her legs, especially that bent knee. Like that was such a stroke of genius. Like once you added that into the sculpt in general, it helps tell the story of like, oh yeah, you can just feel that she's like bursting out of this thing and going straight up. And like you mentioned, the curve of the back and all that. And then you worked really hard on the expression, because you wanted that like that sly, like smug, like smile, that half smile, right?
I mean, we tried the wink open mouth.
We did try the wink open mouth, and that did not work.
It did not work.
Did not work at all.
As much as we tried, the back and forth, endless prints, endless 3D prototyping, and it wasn't working. It wasn't looking like she looked like,
She looked like
the
looked
Joker.
a little
She
bit
looked
like a sailor who wanted to eat some spinach.
in order to get that big smile and happy wink, it just extend her jaw like a snake, and it just wasn't working. And so we had to really focus on just, okay, can we put the emotion of her being positive and also sly, and we want people to be able to see that as well. And so that's really again, the character has to come through.
Yeah, it feels very much a little bit like if you were going to imagine a Xavier School propaganda poster, to me, like this sculpt kind of hits that, right? Like it's like, join the winning team, and she's just like there, like, you know, not a care in the world as she's fighting these deadly like robot monsters. So very cool, like just a great sculpt. Again, the engineering on it's really like very cool. The torso and how it slots into the coat to like hide those seam lines, like I talked about a little bit. It's just like everything, and then the way that the whole base piece clips onto the existing base to like make a whole brand new base out of like a normal base is just, I don't know why, but to me every time I slot that thing together and it perfectly clicks, I'm like, this is great. I just love it.
It's
I love
satisfying.
it. It's so satisfying.
And we definitely also, like, we had a bit of back and forth choosing, as she's often depicted with her, like, recent straight hair and everything. We decided to go with big curly.
All about the 90s. All
Yes,
about that
big
Jim
curly
Lee's
hair.
era. Like, she's got the headband on.
It's
she's
like,
got-
we're already in this, so we might
Yeah,
as well
yeah,
go.
all the way. But jacket on, jacket off, that was another thing that could have been a debate, but it was like, nope, put the jacket on. There's zero
Had to,
question.
right.
Have to have the
Right.
bomber jacket. So yeah, just super fun. I think it turned out great. And she pairs so well with Gambit, who's kind of like rushing forward, and she's coming through. And I love the pair of those two. It just looks it's so neat. I think you guys just did a great job.
And once again, the through line of the Sentinel parts.
Yeah.
Right? Love
Yeah.
it. Love it. All about it.
Yeah, you know, the X-Men are always fighting Sentinels. Always. Now you can have your Sentinel terrain, you can have your X-Men
Yep.
with the Sentinel parts, and you can tell your story.
Wonderful.
All right, well, I think we're ready for the stat card.
Yeah. I guess.
Let's do it.
We got
Or
it.
we could just end the stream now.
I mean, Tony beat us to
Oh,
it.
you already did it. So the biggest thing with Rogue, I mean, obviously was kind of capturing that. For me, it was capturing that idea that, you know, the 90s Jim Lee version of Rogue, she's absorbed Captain Marvel's powers, Ms. Marvel's powers at the time. So she has that Kree mutant physiology mix. And she was a really fun one to like work on because how do you do mutant absorption, you know? And so I hit on this idea of, you know, we have these effects where you roll dice and based on crits and hits, you get to do stuff, or crits and wilds, you get to do stuff. And so I transferred that into like, can she draw power tokens from people and then deal damage if they don't have enough power? Luckily that worked out and it wasn't too crazy, although Pagani did raise his eyebrow at me on it.
We went through a couple iterations of that, but I think we ended up in a
couple.
really good spot.
Yeah, and then everything else was like pretty simple. The goal was to kind of make a very mobile, hard-hitting like brawler character for the X-Men. So she's got a lot of durability. She's got the mutant absorption, which again lets her battery up, and then she can spend it on Southern hospitality, or she can really utilize that X-Men Blue leadership really well. Her absorbing strike was really fun. We got like, I was kind of just like, throw everything in there and see what happens. Give her sap power. Give her this. It's great.
Yeah, so I like this character in contrast to, say, Gambit and Magic, right? Gambit and Magic are both very versatile. They can do things from range. They do things from close combat, close-in fights. Rogue is only range 2 on both of her attacks. So, like, she's really got to get in there, right? And this is very different from Colossus, because Colossus doesn't have charge. Rogue does have charge. So Rogue is really the more aggressive, like, fighting character. Colossus is more the defensive, sort of save my team character. And then we have spots in there for, say, Jean as a ranged attacker, or if you want more versatile characters, you can take either Gambit or Magic. So, like, it was a really good way by reducing those ranges of those attacks, because I think Southern Hospitality started out at range 3, because we have a lot of those where like the slower melee-oriented characters have range 3 stuff to give them a little more reach and sort of where they can influence the table. But with charge, you don't necessarily need that. Plus, it also let us build in like, this is sort of her niche inside of that faction that is getting to be substantial. There are a lot of X-Men characters and a lot more on the way. So,
yeah. It was just a lot of fun. Like I felt like she's such an intriguing character from the power set, and what she does is so different. And between the tactic cards that we were able to come up with, and of course, you know, the the mutant absorption, and just the absorbing strike and stuff, we were able to create a really unique character that, to me, felt very Rogue, which is always the most important thing that I advocate for and we look for. Is like, how do you make something that's really balanced within the game, exciting to play, and offers opportunities, but still feels like that character, and doesn't overshadow other things in the set. in terms of like the affiliation and stuff. So, you're always putting her next to like a Wolverine or Colossus at that threat 4 range, and like, what is each one bringing to the affiliation and the game? How do they pair together? Like, who do you want to play? If you're really aggressively minded, I really like running Rogue and Wolverine together.
Yeah.
Because then you're like, pick one, and you're probably gonna pick wrong, because you both have 2 very durable like brawler characters that can get in there, and then you throw in a Colossus to throw Wolverine forward. Now you've got a charging Rogue, and what are you gonna do? It's so much fun stuff when it comes to that, and watching these characters kind of like pair up and work well. And I like how well she pairs with Gambit, because like while she's in there, he's like popping you with cards. And if you get too close, he'll hit you with the bow staff and push you away, and then she can go punch you or throw you, all that good stuff.
And we can never forget the other tactic card, which we're not going to show, called Mind If I Cut In.
Mind If I Cut In, that one, that card is just fun. It's just
It's
fun.
saucy.
It is.
Get ready.
It is saucy. It is saucy. It has a great piece of art with her and Juggernaut.
And
And she's saving Morlocks.
And it's got not just any Morlocks, some very specific characters. I'll say it.
Are you getting sweaty now talking about the Morlocks?
Artie and Leech make a cameo in that
Make
card.
a cameo on that card.
I'm really I like that
She
card
comes
a lot.
in.
That's a fun one.
I mean, look at that physical defense, and then the create mutant physiology. Like, she's so tough, she's so tanky. It's scary. Like,
A good amount of stamina.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
She's awesome.
Yeah, she's aggressive.
Yeah.
As I described Magic as well. A rogue is an aggressive. So.
Some strong characters and everything else.
And that does bring us to the end
That's it.
of our
So,
topics.
No more.
It's true. Any other thoughts? Any closing thoughts on the X-Men or anything like that?
So much more to come.
I'm trying to be.
It's okay.
Josh is trying to hold back
So much
here.
more to
He's
come.
I mean,
very excited.
we're all X-Men fans. We are. I'm stopping because you're the one that keeps making fun of me.
Especially Pagani.
But
Well, I mean, not that I'm not an X-Men. I guess to explain that a little bit. I don't really read comics.
no, but still.
Sorry.
But you've been reading more lately. I
have read more.
But you have a lot of comic readers in the office, and we dig deep. For the you can see a lot of deep stuff coming. I can say that you can see a lot of deep cuts for X-Men storylines coming in the future, and the stuff that we're really proud of. And it's a mix. It's a mix of like a lot of stuff. I guess I'll say like when we show the first set of characters, we're like, where's Colossus, right? Where's Rogue, right? It's a mix of trying to do the stuff that's obvious, right? That's obviously going to come, and some surprises and some stuff that we like that is a little bit more obscure. And it's always going to be a mixture of that. And you'll be seeing that in the coming months and years, stuff that I'm very excited about. And
Well, we do
it's
have the
really
Future of MCP panel tomorrow.
We do.
I'm not in it, so I can't say anything except that I'm really excited about everything.
If you want to know about the Future of MCP,
I'll have to go in there. And
show up to that panel, Josh.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
might
can
learn
show up.
something.
You might learn. You
I
might
might
learn what
learn
you're doing
something.
next, Josh.
I might learn something.
You might be like, oh, I missed that.
Wait, we're doing what?
What's happening? What? Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for this panel. Hopefully you're as excited as we are for the next wave of X-Men. They're going to be releasing in Q1 of 2022. So be watching out for that. We're going to have a lot more information as we go forward and get closer to those release dates, more of the tactic cards, stat cards, things we didn't show. If you want to see, however, a couple of these characters, specifically the ones Magic and Rogue in action for the first time, Pagani and Josh are actually going to be squaring off on Saturday. I believe that Josh is going to be taking control of the X-Men because, of course,
Do the thing.
To me by X-Men.
Yeah. How could he not take control of the X-Men? He's going to be running an X-Men blue roster with Rogue and Magic, along with a couple of the other previously released X-Men. And then Pagani is going to be squaring off against those X-Men with the Avengers under Hulkbuster and including Ms. Marvel, who we spoiled stat cards for yesterday.
And it's an Avenger.
Yeah.
That's also a spoiler.
It's an adventure.
Spoiler alert.
I think we mentioned that in the panel, but
Well, if we didn't, now we did.
either way, now we did. So be sure to tune in for that. Check the schedule for the exact time in your area. I believe it's 1:30 Pacific, if I'm remembering it correctly, but BK will correct me in the chat if I'm wrong. That should be a great time. You two haven't played a game in quite a while on the stream, so
That's true.
No, we've played a lot on stream, but not recently.
Not recently. No, there was a time
Sadly.
where it was
Sad
going
times.
on. So.
I'm excited.
So it'll be fun if you want to see how these characters work within the context of their affiliations and kind of see who can roll the best lucky shots, because I know Josh in playtest is a monster when it comes to just
true.
defying the odds
It's true.
when it comes to his rolls.
When it doesn't matter if you roll good, rolling really great. 'cause
Does
it's
it matter
playtest.
tomorrow?
I mean, you know.
Everything matters to me.
Everything. It's a grudge
all on
match.
the line.
It's a grudge
Yeah,
match.
this is
I don't know what the
match.
grudge is, but it is a grudge match.
Everyone's an X-Men fan, so they're all counting on you,
That
Josh.
is true. That is very true.
We will be taking bets.
So that'll be happening. And then if you want to catch us tonight for our hangout after the day, we're going to be painting X-Men and Marvel Crisis Protocol. So I know that Dallas, I believe, has a Gambit. I have a Gambit and a Rogue. So you're going to see X-Men characters all over the place. So if you want to take a little closer at those miniatures, see what we come up with our stuff, and just hang out, ask questions, chill with us as we kind of decompress from day 2 of Ministravaganza, that'll be great. Otherwise, coming right up, we've got Dallas Kemp, who is going to be doing some hobbying stuff. And I'm sure BK is telling you exactly what that is. I can't remember anymore.
There's a lot of panels.
It's too late in the day, and there's so many panels. Battle of Kashyyyk. There you go. He's going to be painting some
Vehicles,
droid
right?
stuff, I think, from that wave.
Yeah, I think it's
Yep.
some of the vehicles.
So it might be a Persuader tank if I'm not,
I
if I'm
believe
not
that
wrong.
is correct.
So be sure to check that out. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us. Hope you're excited as we are. And Josh, take us out.
Goodbye, my friends.
Goodbye, my X-Men?
Goodbye, my. I was trying to figure out what to
You gotta
say.
be like,
That's right. Children of the Atom. Anything?
Anything.
Tony laughed, and
Tony
that's all that
laughed. There you
matters.
go. That's all that matters. You everyone?
Goodbye.
bye.
Oh my God.